York's classic rock, Q1043.
Q104.3, New York's classic rock. Ken Dash out in the studio with somebody who's a longtime friend and a music business veteran. When I say veteran, I'm talking about running national rock and roll promotion for, back then it was CBS, Sony Records. My dear friend, Paul Rappaport, who has written his book. Finally, after years of everyone saying, write the damn book, he's written the damn book, Gliders Over Hollywood. Paul, welcome.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. I've brought so many artists up to this radio station,
and now you're the artist.
Right, and now I'm the guy. Right? It's pretty strange. I have to get used to it.
So I have to share with everybody, for the first time we've known each other 40 years or something. For the first time, I bought Paul breakfast. For the first time, I picked up the check. And you said that was one of the weirdest things you've ever done.
Yeah, I made my day. I mean, usually I'm pick up everything. I'm the promotion guy. That's what we do. Like, we're taking people out to lunch, dinner. It could be radio people, it could be the artists. We're always picking up the check. So I'm sitting across from you when you said, I'm going to get it this time. I was like, oh my God, I feel like the talent,
But you are the talent. You're the one who wrote this book.
Yeah, I guess I am. So.
And the thing is, it's pulling back the. It's not the stories of debauchery. I mean, there are some, but it's not about, oh, look at the crazy life and look at all the girls, and that's part of it. But it's part of the story of how you make a record a hit, of what the music business was back in the 70s. The thing about your journey is you start out as the hippie musician. You start out as like the Los Angeles trying to be the Ramones guy, and how the long-haired guitar kid in the band becomes the businessman of national rock radio promotion is amazing. But the one through thing that you have in this book is that from being a musician, that you're able to stand with one foot in what a musician feels and thinks and one foot in the business world. And that makes you different from so many others.
Yeah, that was special for me because it gave me a relationship with artists that was, much different than they might have with other people in the company who would talk to them about numbers and, marketing in a different way because they're from the complete business side. And I could talk to these people about their music, and especially being a guitar player. If you wound up working with Keith Richards or Ronnie Wood or David Gilmour, et cetera, you're just talking about the guitar all the time because it's like a club. People that play guitar, it's like a little family, and everybody's always interested in teaching somebody else this or showing. We're talking about guitars. What do you have? What do you play by? Et cetera, et cetera. So that was an immediate in. Plus, they knew that I loved their music. I came from the '60s generation. The people before me at Columbia Records were mostly men and women from the 50s, and in those days mostly men, right? Because women were just starting to get in the business. But excuse me, but they didn't quite understand this new generation, us or the music. It was different for them, and so people like myself sort of became the next generation record executives, if you will, because a lot of us were in the college rep department, which is where I started at UCLA. It was a part-time job. You're a college representative. You get albums. You put displays up in Westwood Village. You go to the radio station, get some airplay, get the Daily Bruin to write about the record. Maybe you get a band to come on campus. But I was from this music, so I could tell you, every player in Janis Joplin's band, and I could talk to people like Randy California from Spirit, or Ronnie Wood, or anybody just about their music, the Pink Floyd guys especially, because this was all music that I knew was inside me before I was even in the music business. Right, this is just a kid growing up, so their music's deep in my DNA. I mean, at 17 years old, I discovered the Rolling Stones. I mean, it's, the Beatles and the Stones are it for the longest time. And, so for me to eventually get to work with those people was a real big deal, but I was able to speak to them on a different level.
Okay, so I'm going to make a jump here, and I'm jumping from launching a new band that you hear, or something
Yes.
that's exciting, or a new project, to working with Paul McCartney. And Paul, when you think about Capitol Records, and it was always the Beatles and Capitol, and McCartney winds up for a small period of time being on CBS. What were the projects that were brought to CBS, and how did he get there?
Well, I don't know how he got signed, but it was a real big deal when he came because, at this moment, I mean, it's the 80s. The first record I think we had with him was the duet with him and Stevie Wonder.
Ebony and Ivory.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember.
Tug of War.
Yeah. So first of all, we're all used to working with superstars, but there are superstars and then there's the Beatles. It's like there's the Beatles, and I would, I don't want to offend any Beatle listeners, but for me it's both. It's the Beatles and the Stones just because they came at the same time and, I was blues oriented or whatever. But, when you get to the level of a Beatle, even beyond the Rolling Stones, I mean, we all know what that meant when we saw them on Ed Sullivan. We know how the world changed, right? And the Stones, come after, and believe me, obviously they're the Rolling Stones, but the Beatles are the Beatles. So, the idea that we've signed a Beatle, puts us. No, I mean it's kind of funny, but it puts us in rare air.
You've worked for years and years. Were you still starstruck when Paul walks in the room?
Oh, absolutely. You can't not be. I mean, I was starstruck, frankly. Anybody who's older than I am, so, the Pink Floyd guys are older than I am, the Stones, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, those people. The music's inside me since I'm a very young man, and in those formative years is when your life is being shaped. My life is being shaped by Bob Dylan. He's saying, hey, look, the world's changing. You can be a part of the change. You don't have to live in this square world that we used to live in. Look at all the Beatles messages. I mean, my God, the love you take is equal to the love you make. All these things are shaping our lives. So when you look across at somebody like a Mick Jagger or like Paul McCartney, you don't see just a professional, that's made a great living, for their band. All those records, all those music, all the movies and the videos and the posters and the concerts you went to, that's what you see, and I would say that's what happened to me. Anybody else who tells you it's different are lying because you can't help it. You just can't help it. There's so much that you want to tell these people. They're just like, thank you. Like, do you know how many times I got high and listened to the second side of Abbey Road? like every night in college. So no, it was like that. But people like that who have been around the block and have been through what they've been through. And a lot of people don't realize, everybody sees the fame as fun and everything. They don't realize there's another side to it.
Right.
It could get pretty rough and, band politics and all this kind of stuff. But those people that have been around that long, they have a sense of calm about themselves. They get it, and they understand who they are, and they understand what they mean. But I've worked, because Columbia Records is a big label, okay, so I've worked with Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones, Santana, Elvis Costello, Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel. It's endless, right, just because the label was so big. I will tell you that Paul McCartney, without a doubt, was the most gracious and amazing artist I ever worked with in my life.
It's funny thing is, you're not the first person to say that. And Tony Melchior on a previous podcast in Breakfast of the Beatles said, Paul walks off the stage and he shakes everybody's hand who's backstage. Hey, man, thanks a lot. Hey, man, great job. Hey, it was a great show. Thanks. He said he doesn't know what they did, but he knows they worked for him that night. And he knows who he is. And they can say they met him and they shook his hand. He said, and if he walked off the stage and just went, thanks everyone, walked by, nobody would say a word. But he takes 5 minutes and says thank you to every stagehand and grip and person who's back there. And he said, you hardly see that. But he said, I walked away going, so that's what a true pro is. That's what a true professional does. And I said, but think about how they were trained. After they played every song, when they started, what they do? They bowed. Brian Epstein taught them. And in this book, Gliders Over Hollywood.
Here I'm on video
yes.
for a second. I'm very proud of this book.
I want to get to talking about Paul and the project. Tell the story about doing the day of interviews, all day, all night, and how that day ends.
Yeah, we had an album and there was a movie, Give My Regards to Broad Street. And so this was the project. Paramount Pictures had rented out the entire floor of the plaza when the plaza was the Plaza Hotel. And Paul was able to literally visit the entire world because in every suite there was different media. But, it would be radio, television, press. You walked in, this is Italy. This is amazing. You walked in, next one, this is France. This is, India. I mean, it was the entire world. No,
Can you imagine being that guy going, we've set up all the countries of the world here
right.
in this.
That's the level the guy's on. Okay,
Yeah.
But that's the truth. I mean, this is, like I'm saying, there's him and, of course, other Beatles, and then there's the space. It's
Right.
just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yes, the entire world is at your feet. You're going to visit the entire world. This is how you're going to do
And they're
it.
grateful that you'll spend 10 minutes with them.
Yes. So we were the last suite, and in our suite it was rock radio. And we had set it up to make it easy for people. You just had to sit down in front of a mic. We had engineers, and we were running the tape, so you didn't have to set up anything. And Paul would sit down in front of you, and we'd turn the tape on. You have an interview. There is a very famous Philadelphia DJ, Helen Light, and Helen Light has been on just the biggest stations in Philadelphia, and she's a professional. She had brought up, I think it was a painting. I can't remember if it was a painting I think it was a painting or a needlepoint of a picture of a farm for Paul, because she knew, he and Linda were really into farming and everything, and she gave it to him as a gift, and it's all nice, and it was very meaningful to her to give this. She's a professional. She sits down in front of him to do the interview. But what happens to her is just like what happens to all of us. Who is she looking at? She's looking at this guy that she fell in love with when she was 16 years old, right? Mm-hmm. She's been in love with Beatle Paul for her whole life, right?
Right.
The music, everything. She looks at him and she completely loses it and just starts bawling. Like the buckets of tears, she can't handle it. And it's a magic moment because it can happen to all of us. We understand what that is, right? McCartney totally understands it. Because it happens to him a lot. He understands not so much even how he was trained, Ken. He understands that he is an ambassador for something larger than just this great music. He's an ambassador for the Beatles, what they meant, how they changed the culture, how they changed our lives. He understands that, and he understands how people are going to react to him. He gets up out of his chair, walks over, gets Helen out of her chair, and starts hugging her, like to make it okay. Like, hey, I know how this is, and but hey, it's only me, and let's just hug it out. And it's this beautiful moment, right? And he's not doing it out of an obligation. This is the man. You're looking at a human being, right? And we're all looking at it. This is like this beautiful moment, right? So this happens. She dries her tears. She sits down, start the tape again. The funniest one happened all over again. She starts bawling. Anyway, she finally got it together, did a great interview. Okay. So I can't remember how many interviews we did, but we're done. 7 o'clock at night. Now, Paul McCartney's been working all day long, tirelessly, from 9 until 7. Maybe they give him a lunch break, right? And he looks dog-tired. And I say to him, he says, is there anything else on the schedule? Is there anything else on the schedule? Yeah. I'm like, no, Paul, it's like, yes, the Columbia Records, your record label is just 5 blocks down the street. There's a lot of people there that would like to meet you. You have to understand these are not record executives. These are everyday, workaday people, secretaries, assistants. I said, so it's not a have to thing. And this guy looks at me and he goes, oh no, we have to go. He goes, this is important. He said, hey Paul, actually these people in a lot of ways are more important to me than the record executives. He said we have to go.
And he meant it.
No, he meant it. No, I'm telling you, this is not.
He's not doing it to impress you.
No.
He means
this
it's
is
in his
him.
heart.
Yes, he means it in his heart. This is the guy, right? I'm amazed because I've worked with a lot of artists on a lot of levels. I've not met too many people like this, right? Maybe Tony Bennett was like that, right? Who would go out of their way like this, right? Maybe Springsteen, but not. He's on a different level, right? So I said, okay, now, the only thing that's going to be kind of funny is I can't walk you down the street. It's only 5 blocks. But if I walk you 1 block, down Fifth Avenue, it's going to be a very challenging crowd. We don't want to. It's going to be like
set up security.
It's going to be like the Help movie, right? It's like we can't do that, right? So I have to put him in a limousine. We're laughing all the way, right? It's rush hour in New York. We have to go. The limo is on a street. We have to go around the corner before we can go down Fifth Avenue. It took us 45 minutes
To go 5 blocks.
to go 5 blocks in New York, and we're in the limousine laughing, but we can't do anything about it because we'll just get mobbed, right? Ken, Paul McCartney goes upstairs to the 12th floor. It's a very famous floor, Columbia Records in Black Rock, which is, this big black granite building where CBS is. We were still owned by CBS at the time. And Arthur Paley's office is up
52nd Street.
Yeah.
Famous.
So he goes up there. He went around the entire floor, every desk, hugs, kisses, photographs, autographs, didn't rush anybody. Anybody want to talk to him? Any questions, right? He spent 2 more hours at his record company's meeting.
Just staff.
Just staff. It meant a lot to him. He gets what he means to people. He appreciates their love. I mean, he just is a guy that he can take it in. He goes, okay, I get it, and thank you for feeling this way. And because you feel this way, hey, sure, take a picture. Here's a hug. Here's a kiss. Here's an autograph. What do you want to know? I mean, I did this for like 33 plus years. Of all the artists I ever worked with, I never saw anything like it in my life. And he's Paul McCartney. He's the one guy that doesn't have to do it.
Right. You should forgive forgive the pun. He carries the weight of the most ridiculous fame any artist will ever know so effortlessly. It crushes so many people. It's crushed and killed so many people in their 20s who couldn't handle fame or fortune, who started on the train and crashed a year into their career. And this man now is 60 years into his career and is still enjoying it, appreciates it, and gets it, and still functioning on that high level. His guitarist, Brian Ray, this band he's been with now has been with longer than the Beatles, longer than Wings. It's amazing. They really are a tight-knit group. And I said to Brian, do you ever forget that Paul McCartney is Paul McCartney? I mean, you're playing the songs and everything, but can you ever lose it? He said, well, here's the thing. He said, you don't forget, I mean, the songs, they never stop resonating with you, and there's a crowd of 20,000, 50,000, 180,000 people, Super Bowl or a club, and you feel the reaction. You always know it's great. But here are the moments. There's the occasional moments. We're playing in L.A., and we're backstage, and Christopher Walken comes backstage. And this is Brian Ray talking. He said, I always wanted to meet Christopher Walken. So I have to go over just to tell him, fanboy, I love his work. I would love to get a picture with him, to show my family because we all love him. But I'm not going to interrupt him till he talks to the boss. I'll wait till he finishes talking with the boss. And he walks up to Paul McCartney, and Paul says, hey, how you doing, Christopher? Oh, love your movies. And Christopher Walken, like our DJ in Philadelphia, just explodes into tears, collapses into Paul's chest, and Paul holds him as he's sobbing. And Christopher tries to gather himself and kisses Paul's hands and says, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And walks out of the room, runs out of the room holding his eyes, holding his face, so he can try to get out before collapsing. And I went, yeah, I probably won't get a picture with Christopher Walken tonight. But those are those moments when you always, even though we're in the band, but he's the guy telling jokes. We're in the band.
When he's in the band, when he looks over, does he sometimes have to shake his head? Like I remember when I started working with Bob Dylan, who just, actually changed my life and a lot of our generation's lives.
Mine too, everybody.
Right. So you could talk to Bob for about 30 seconds, but then you'd have to shake your head and go, geez, that's Bob Dylan. You got to collect yourself, and then you can continue to talk. But for people like that, so I wonder if when he looks over at Paul, he's playing the guitar and he's doing all the things he's supposed to do. Does he ever look over and go, God, it's Paul McCartney?
Right. He said it's hard to forget it because, but those moments, like the Christopher Walken, are the ones you forget the true depth of it, like you say in your book. This is Paul Rappaport, this book, Gliders Over Hollywood. You're just going to love it because it's not just the inside juicy stories. It's stories like that of what the artist means and the brilliant creativity it takes to get a band a hit record. They always, these big record companies, I don't know what it is now. It's different now. But in his day, the passion for the artists was so real, was so profound. Yeah, you wanted to make money, but you really cared about the music. That's what comes through in this book.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was all about the music, for us, at least for my generation. And so I wanted to write the book because I wanted to capture, the magical times of the 70s, 80s, and 90s is not only this renaissance of rock music, but the business itself was brand new, right? You're talking late 60s, early 70s when rock really starts to happen. I started Columbia Records. They already had Bob Dylan and Janis Joplin and some other people, but I show up, and now we have new artists, a band called Aerosmith, some guy named Bruce Springsteen, some guy named Billy Joel. These are all new people, right, that I'm going to begin to work with. And I wanted people to get to know them in ways they wouldn't normally, from my point of view, and like this McCartney thing. And there's a lot of funny stories in there about how, these people are. And I wanted to write it in a way that, like you are there. So as you read, it's conversations with all these people. I'm blessed with a photographic memory. I mean, I'm talking about, I'm having a conversation with Mick Jagger. I can tell you, I can picture the room. I can tell you what the guy had for dinner. It's weird. It's really weird. But I wanted people to have fun like I had fun. So it's a fun book in that way. And as you mentioned, I am letting you know about the insides of how this works. How does the record business work? How do records become hits on radio? Who are you guys? How is it to deal with a Ken Dashow? How is it to deal with radio people? I just wanted to get it all. And so it took a long time to write it, but here it is finally.
You guys will love it. Gliders Over Hollywood. If it's an audiobook, I want to volunteer. I put my hat in the ring for being the reader for the book.
Yeah, you'll sound better than me, that's for sure.
Paul, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate having you.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.